because this right here, right now, is my reality and has been for now well over a decade.
तो गाइस, आज की वीडियो में एक ब्रिटिश आदमी बता रहा है कि अमेरिका में रहना कैसा है और वहाँ लाइफ गुजारना कैसा है। तो मेरा नाम सलमान है। आज की वीडियो में बने रहे। उम्मीद करता हूँ सब लोग खैरियत से होंगे। वेलकम टू एसकेसी रिएक्ट। तो बगैर किसी टाइम वेस्ट किए चलते हैं आज की वीडियो की जाने।
Hello. So a question that I get asked quite often is, what's it like being a British person living in America? And it's sort of a hard question to answer in many ways because, I've lived here for 13 years. And so I almost...
ओह, अच्छा, ये इस वीडियो में बता रहा है कि मैं पिछले 13 सालों से अमेरिका में रह रहा हूँ। तो बहुत से लोगों ने इससे ये सवाल भी किया है कि आपका ये अमेरिका में रहना कैसा है, हमें बताएं।
sort of struggle to remember what it was like living in Britain as a British person. Because this right here, right now, is my reality and has been for now well over a decade. But to the best of my ability, I can recall and think that, being a Brit living in America is a sort of unusual experience in many ways. You do spend a lot of that early time, especially if you live in a kind of smallish city in Indiana where there aren't too many British people congregating. You will get quite a lot of questions about your accent. And I kind of liked that, to be honest, as an introvert, because it was kind of an icebreaker. And so if you're stuck for things to say and you don't want to resort to, isn't the weather terrible again today, it's sort of nice that people clock your accent. I can see how it would get annoying for a lot of people, but not for me. I really quite enjoyed it. And that would usually consist of Americans asking me to say words like tomato or water or squirrel or things like that. Basically, you're a performing monkey just for a little bit. And that's fine. I didn't get paid for it, sadly. I should say that since I've moved to Chicago, I don't really get those questions very often anymore. And I think it's just down to the fact that Chicago's a bit more of a cosmopolitan area. It's not so unusual to encounter somebody with an accent, specifically in this case, a British accent. So in many ways that's sad, and I have to think of other things now to say to people, and it usually is about the weather. So I've regressed. But, that isn't the entirety of the experience here. I think that a lot of Americans, when they speak to me, they're not asking about the accent as such. They might clock it, they might realise that I'm from England, but they don't take that line of questioning any further. They might ask, though, about the history of my country or a specific episode within that history. One thing that was coming up a few years ago all the time was, isn't it extraordinary that they found King Richard III underneath a car park? No American ever said car park, but you get the general picture. And I responded with, yes, it is amazing. It is amazing. I'm looking back at my country now with this newfound sense of kind of pride, because I'm looking at it with these Americans, maybe more astounded about a news event like that than I would have been had I lived in England, I think. And, it still astounds me that they found a brutal dictator underneath a Ford Capri. But one of the obvious things, and something that I talk about on my channel, is not the sort of the thing that brings you together, but it's the differences, of course, that make living here as a Brit quite confusing at times. Now, when I moved here, I've said this before, I made it my goal, my mission, I think, in many ways, to embrace the lifestyle around me and the things that I encountered. But sometimes, even in doing that, there was a sense of uncertainty. You'd hear concepts and phrases that you've never heard of. And these can consist, of course, of words, spellings, pronunciation, but we could also be talking about food, as I do, routinely on my channel, but also just things to do with everyday life. I think it's a testament to just how widespread all of the differences are between our two countries that I've been able to make a living out of talking about them for 6 years. And I haven't stopped yet. There's still so much more to get to grips with on this subject. And you could be forgiven for thinking that, oh, Lawrence has lived here for 13 years. He's surely learned everything now. But I don't. I learn new things every day. Like, it was only this year that I found out that my wife and Americans in general pronounce centrifugal as centrifugal, which blew my mind. you know, because it's not a word I use every day for obvious reasons. You know, that kind of thing still comes up to this day. So you never stop learning, that's for sure. But I would say this, I would say two things. You know, enjoy it for what it is. You know, I encounter so many British people who move here who just sort of long for the things that they've left behind in Britain, even though you can just get them shipped here. It is more expensive to do that, granted. But I would just say, no, if you're going to live here, you might as well try to enjoy it. Right? So that's exactly what I do. And the other thing is use your accent to your advantage. Americans incorrectly believe that I'm somehow intelligent, and that's been very useful for selling this channel. But when they find out the truth, I'm on borrowed time. Mostly it's light-hearted. I don't use it in a kind of vindictive or mean way. I'm just very aware that when, you know, I speak to people, there's a certain connotation that comes with that, whether it's true or not. And in most cases, it's really untrue. I think at the end of the day, you know, we joke about the sort of communication barrier between our two countries, but at least you're not learning a whole new language. And so, you know, you are going to a place that's somewhat like Britain in terms of that. You know, for all of its alienness, it's not 100% alien. But you know what is 100% alien? The film Alien, which was brought to us, as it happens, by a joint British and American production crew. I don't really know why I'm mentioning this, other than to point out the fact that when Brits and Americans work together, we can produce greatness. And an even better sequel, so all that to say, stay tuned for my next video. I'm Lawrence Brown, you can follow me on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. Thank you as ever to my patrons who make these videos possible. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond, you can do so today at patreon.com/lostinthepond. Until the next video, goodbye.
जैसा कि इसने इस वीडियो में बताया कि ये पिछले 13 सालों से रह रहा है और बड़े ही अच्छे तरीके से अमेरिका को बयान किया कि मुझे क्या क्या मुश्किलात आई शुरू में, और जो ये काफ़ी चैलेंजिंग हो सकता है कि अपना एक मुल्क छोड़ के किसी दूसरे अनजान मुल्क में रिहाइश पजीर करना। उसने ये भी बताया कि एक लैंग्वेज का जो एक्सेंट होता है वो भी चेंज होता है। ऐसी बात है, एक जो ब्रिटिश एक्सेंट है वो चेंज है और जो अमेरिकन एक्सेंट है वो बिल्कुल इससे चेंज है। आज की वीडियो काफ़ी थोड़ी सैडली थी और अच्छी थी। इस वीडियो को लाइक करें अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आई है। हमारे चैनल को ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब करें और हमारे पैट्रियन बनने के लिए हमें पैट्रियन पर ज़रूर सपोर्ट करें। हम और आप मिलेंगे किसी और वीडियो में, तब तक दें हमें इजाज़त। अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।